Imagine a nation crushed under foreign rule for over a century, its pride shattered. Then, from the ashes of humiliation, it rises not just to reclaim its land, but to forge one of the most powerful and wealthy empires the world has ever seen. This isn't the plot of a fantasy epic. This is the true story of ancient Egypt's 18th dynasty, an era so magnificent it's known as the Golden Age. Forged in rebellion, this dynasty would produce warrior pharaohs, a queen who ruled as king, a religious revolutionary, and leave behind treasures that still mesmerize us today. This is the story of how Egypt became a superpower. Our story begins in a divided Egypt. For more than 100 years, the northern part of the country was ruled by foreigners, known as the Hyksos, a name meaning rulers of foreign lands. They had settled in the Nile Delta and established their own capital, Avaris. The native Egyptian pharaohs of the 17th dynasty were pushed south to the city of Thebes, forced to act as vassals to these northern kings. The Hyksos brought new military technology to Egypt, including the horse-drawn chariot and the powerful composite bow. Ironically, these were the very weapons the Egyptians would master and turn against them. The humiliation of foreign rule sparked a fierce nationalism in the Theban princes. The War of Liberation was bloody. The mummy of one Theban king, Seqenenre-Tao, shows horrific head wounds, a silent testament to his death in battle. His sons continued the fight, but it was his youngest son, Ahmose I, who would claim the ultimate victory. Ahmose besieged and captured the Hyksos capital of Avaris, drove them out of Egypt entirely, and reunified the land. He is celebrated as the founder of the 18th dynasty. But Ahmose didn't just win a war. He laid the foundation for a new kind of Egypt. He reorganized the military and the administration, and crucially, he instilled a new, aggressive ideology. To prevent future invasions, Egypt must create a buffer zone. It must expand. It must build an empire. With the country unified and the military energized, the pharaohs who followed Ahmose I began to look outwards. This was the birth of Egypt's professional army, with the pharaoh as its supreme commander. Ahmose's successor, Amenhotep I, pushed south into Nubia, a land rich in the one resource that would fuel Egypt's golden age: gold. But it was Thutmose I who truly kicked the doors open. He marched his armies farther than any pharaoh before him, deep into Nubia in the south, and all the way to the Euphrates River in the north, clashing with the rival Mitanni kingdom. For the first time, Egypt was establishing garrisons and demanding tribute from conquered lands in Asia. An empire was being born. Yet the power behind the throne was often as important as the pharaoh himself. The queens of this early period, like Ahotep and Amenhotep, were incredibly influential. They acted as regents, held immense religious authority, and were vital in consolidating the new dynasty's power. This set the stage for one of the most remarkable rulers in all of history. After the short reign of Thutmose II, the throne passed to his young son, Thutmose III. But the real power was the boy's stepmother and aunt, a woman named Hatshepsut. She was the daughter of the great Thutmose I, and initially, she acted as regent for the young king. But within a few years, she did something unprecedented. She declared herself pharaoh. Hatshepsut took on the full titles, and was even depicted in art with the masculine body of a king, complete with a false beard. But her reign was not one of war. Instead of conquest, she focused on peace, prosperity, and trade. She famously launched a massive expedition to the distant land of Punt, likely in modern-day Somalia, bringing back incredible wealth: incense, myrrh, ivory, and gold. This wealth fueled one of Egypt's most ambitious building programs. She erected giant obelisks at the Temple of Karnak and built her masterpiece, a stunning, terraced, mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahri, one of the wonders of the ancient world. After 2 decades of peace and prosperity under Hatshepsut, Her stepson, Thutmose III, finally took sole possession of the throne, and he had a very different idea of how a pharaoh should rule. Whatever his feelings toward his stepmother, Thutmose III proved to be one of the greatest military leaders in history. He inherited a well-trained army and immediately set about reasserting Egyptian dominance. Over 2 decades, he launched 17 victorious military campaigns. His first and most famous was the Battle of Megiddo, where his brilliant strategy and daring tactics crushed a coalition of rebellious princes in Canaan. The detailed records of his campaigns, carved into the walls of the Karnak Temple, show a military genius at work. Modern historians have dubbed him the Napoleon of Egypt. He understood logistics, naval support, and the importance of swift, decisive action. His armies pushed the Egyptian empire to its greatest extent, from Syria in the north to the Fourth Cataract of the Nile in the south. The tribute and spoils of war, gold, silver, timber, horses, captives, poured into Egypt, enriching the state and the increasingly powerful priesthood of the god Amun-Re. Thutmose III's reign solidified Egypt's status as the undisputed superpower of the age. The conquests of Thutmose III ushered in a period of unparalleled peace and prosperity, reaching its absolute peak during the long reign of Amenhotep III. This was the zenith of the Golden Age. The empire was secure, and the wealth flowing from Nubian gold mines and foreign tribute was staggering. Amenhotep III wasn't a warrior king. He was a builder on a colossal scale. He expanded the great temples at Karnak and Luxor and built a massive mortuary temple for himself, so large that the only things left of it today are 2 gigantic statues known as the Colossi of Memnon. This was a cosmopolitan era. A cache of diplomatic letters, discovered at a site called Amarna, reveals the complex web of international politics. Written on clay tablets, these letters show the kings of Babylonia, Assyria, and the Hittites writing to the pharaoh as an equal, a brother, all while begging for Egypt's most famous export, gold. Egypt was on top of the world. This imperial wealth supported a complex society. Below the god-king pharaoh were the elites, officials, priests, and commanders. But what about the common people? Most were farmers, their lives dictated by the rhythm of the Nile's flood. Skilled artisans, however, were highly valued, especially those who built and decorated the lavish royal tombs. We know about their daily lives from the excavated village of Deir el-Medina, home to the tomb builders. And uniquely, women in 18th Dynasty Egypt enjoyed a relatively high status. They could own property, run businesses, and were considered legal equals to men. And then, at the height of this glorious, stable, and traditional age, everything was turned upside down. Amenhotep III's son came to the throne and launched one of the most bizarre and revolutionary episodes in all of ancient history. His name was Amenhotep IV, but we know him by the name he chose for himself, Akhenaten. In the 5th year of his reign, Akhenaten abandoned the thousands of years of Egyptian polytheistic religion. He outlawed the worship of the vast pantheon of gods, especially the powerful state god Amun-Re, and declared that there was only one true god, the Aten. Represented as the physical disk of the sun, Akhenaten declared himself the sole prophet and intermediary for this new god. This was a total revolution. He sent agents across Egypt to literally chisel the name of the old god Amun from temples and monuments. The art style changed dramatically, shifting from idealized forms to a strange, almost cartoonish naturalism. Akhenaten had himself depicted with an elongated skull, a potbelly, and spindly limbs. And in his most radical move, he abandoned the traditional capital of Thebes and built an entire new city from scratch in the desert, dedicated to the Aten. He called it Akhenaten, the horizon of the Aten. The entire government and royal court moved to this new isolated city. But while Akhenaten was obsessed with his religious revolution, the empire his ancestors had built was beginning to crumble. The Amarna letters showed desperate pleas for help from Egyptian vassal states in Syria who were being threatened by the expanding Hittite Empire. Akhenaten, it seems, did nothing. His revolution did not survive him. After his death, there was a period of confusion before a young boy named Tutankhaten took the throne. Guided by powerful officials, the young king abandoned his father's religion. He changed his name to Tutankhamun, moved the court back to Thebes, and began the process of restoring the old gods and repairing the damage done to their temples. Tutankhamun was a relatively minor king who died young, but he became the most famous pharaoh of all time for one reason: the spectacular 1922 discovery of his small but almost completely intact tomb. The breathtaking treasures found within gave us an unparalleled glimpse into the wealth and craftsmanship of the 18th Dynasty. With Tutankhamun's death without an heir, the dynasty began to fade. After a short reign by an elderly courtier named Ai, power was seized by the commander of the armies, a man named Horemheb. Horemheb was a pragmatist. He was the last pharaoh of the 18th dynasty, and his mission was to restore order and, most importantly, to erase the memory of the heretic king Akhenaten. He launched a systematic campaign to dismantle the monuments from the Amarna period, and he struck Akhenaten, Tutankhamun, and Ai from the official lists of kings as if they never existed. Horemheb had no son to succeed him, so he appointed his trusted vizier and fellow military man, Paramesu, as his heir. This man would take the throne as Ramesses I, founding the 19th dynasty and a new Ramesside era. The 18th dynasty was over. In just over 2.5 centuries, it had transformed Egypt from a humiliated vassal state into a world superpower. It created a vast empire, fueled an explosion of art and architecture, and was home to some of history's most compelling figures: the conqueror Thutmose III, the builder Hatshepsut, the revolutionary Akhenaten, and the boy king Tutankhamun. Though its empire would eventually fade, the legacy of the 18th dynasty, its power, its wealth, and its ambition, would forever define the pinnacle of Egypt's golden age,